Welcome back to the Hockey Show, and last night, the Florida Panthers took down the Toronto Maple Leafs 4-2 in their Game 1 win, and they take the series lead with them 1-0, only 3 more wins away before taking out the Maple Leafs in their second round escapades. And overall, the game was pretty fair. I gotta say, it was pretty even. In fact, I'd even say that the Toronto Maple Leafs were actually the better team overall. They looked more dominant. They had the puck more. They were in the offensive zone. They had really dangerous looking chances. They were so close. They were physical. They are out physicality, something to the Florida Panthers. They looked dominant. They looked in charge. But why did they lose then? Why did the Toronto Maple Leafs lose this game in 4-2 fashion? Because they were lazy, and that's why they lost. And by lazy, I don't mean like the New York Rangers in their Game 7 performance, right? Not that type of lazy. Not Vegas versus Winnipeg in Game 1 if you saw that matchup. Not that kind of lazy. They were lazy because they lacked the killer instinct. Now, did Florida, what's the difference between these two teams? Why did Florida win and not Toronto? Florida won because they capitalized on their chances and they developed them and they scored when they could. And that is kind of resemblance of why Toronto beat Tampa Bay in the first round. I think Tampa was the better team, but they couldn't score. They couldn't put it in the back of the net, and they lacked the killer instinct. They didn't have that one finishing touch, that one last guy to be like, this is my chance, I'm taking it, bam, in the back of the net. That is why Tampa lost to Toronto. Toronto didn't outplay the Tampa Bay Lightning. They just simply Tampa just lost. Toronto didn't win. Tampa lost. And I know it's the same thing, but there is a difference there. It's psychologically. Philosophically in that matter is that Toronto didn't outplay Tampa. Tampa just couldn't beat Toronto, and there's a difference there. And tonight it kind of carried over from that series where Toronto, they looked like they were the better team, but they just couldn't score the goals that they needed. While Florida, learning from their series against the Boston Bruins, knowing to score on their chances, capitalizing and outplaying when they're in the offensive zone and not letting chances go away, not grabbing that opportunity, not going for that brass ring to take home with them and be the hero, right? They look at those opportunities and they take control. Look at Carter Verhaeghe. Look at Sam Bennett, Matthew Tkachuk. These guys, Montour, they are grabbing that brass ring. They're like, this is my chance. I'm putting this thing in the back of the net, and that is what they do. And that is why Florida won. They capitalized on those golden opportunities, whether it's a breakaway for Carter Verhaeghe or Sam Bennett just crashing the net and not giving up, right? Brandon Montour being wide open in the top of the slot and just banging it right into the back of the net, right? That is why Florida won this one. Toronto, they didn't score their goals from outplaying the other team. They didn't score by running the offensive zone and then having Matthews rip it past Bobrovsky, right? That's not what happened. They scored their goals on very bad defensive mistakes by the Florida Panthers. And I know it's like, well, that's how you score. That's how you play hockey. And I'm like, yes, I know that. I understand that is how you play hockey. You take advantage of the other team's mistakes. Yes, absolutely. But what I mean is take a look at the Verhaeghe goal, right? For the Verhaeghe goal is kind of resemblance of how Toronto scored their goals, where kind of the bad defensive positioning and mistakes by the Maple Leafs defenders, where they all get sucked into one player, and then that guy just flips the puck. I think it was Bennett, flips the puck over them, and then Verhaeghe has a breakaway, and he's the type of guy you don't want to give a breakaway to. Just ask Sheldon Keefe, right? With the Toronto Maple Leafs, their goals, the Matthew Knies goal was just a terrible mistake by the defensive mistakes by the Florida Panthers, which just leads him to being the right guy at the right time and can bang that one back in the back of the net. The Michael Bunting goal, bad. No, the commentators kept saying something about Florida like Sheldon Keefe and the Toronto Maple Leafs think that Florida's defense is like widespread or something, and they took advantage of that. Well, if that's the case, they didn't obviously seem to do that a lot tonight, other than one time. So I think they were just kind of making up that. But anyways, the Michael Bunting one, just a very bad giveaway of just guys just beating the defender and just the defense not being where they need to be. So yes, those are the ways you score, but you also need to score on those chances that you develop yourself, and that is the difference here. Because I would say two of the Florida's goals were kind of similar to the two goals that Toronto scores, where you score on the two mistakes. But then Florida added their goals, like the Sam Bennett goal, like the Brandon Montour goal, right? Where they fight for those opportunities. The Montour goal, they're in the offensive zone, they're fighting in the back of the net, they get it out, they get it to the guy on the board, then he sends it up to Montour, who's all by himself in this right at the top of the slot, right above the circles, and no one's like right in front of him for the block. They're all either behind the net or they're screening the goaltender, and he gets that puck and he's going to bam! That one to the back of the net. That's his chance, right? That is what you do to develop those types of goals. The same thing with the Nick Cousins goal too, where they're grinding in the back of the net, and Cousins is and they get the puck into a scoring opportunity, right? So they're scoring on the bad mistakes by the defense, like the Verhage goal, and then with the Bennett goal and Cousins and Montour goal, they're making those opportunities themselves, and that's where Toronto failed, is that they did put themselves in positions to do that with the Matthews post shot, right? And especially towards the last few minutes of the game when they needed that goal, Bobrovsky was there to shut it down, right? And that might be the real killer of all of this, is Samsonov. He definitely looked good. He definitely kept Toronto in the game. I think early on, it definitely could have been a way bigger lead, but Samsonov made a couple really, really good saves. And but Bobrovsky, he made the saves that were needed to be made. Bobby the Robber, I don't know, whatever. Bobrovsky robbing this game not from the Toronto Maple Leafs, but just giving his team a chance to win. That's all you can ask for a goaltender, and he brought them that victory towards the end. Toronto, they were getting those opportunities when they're in the offensive zone playing like Colorado, where they're just able to keep it in, just keep getting shots and shots and shots that are dangerous, but Bobrovsky shut those ones down. And those are the type of ones where after a little while, don't you start to look and be like, okay, I'm Austin Matthews, I'm in the slot, I can't just shoot this thing past Bobrovsky. So instead, why don't they ever just try to do the simple rebound off the pad, or I get the puck and I try to walk my way through and generate those tough chances. That's how you score like a Bennett goal, like a Nick Cousins goal that they scored, is by forcing that one in, causing the chaos, and finally just finding the last tap that they need to put in the back of the net, right? They never did that. They just kept shooting the nice shots that were great shots on Bobrovsky, but he was there to smother everything that was there to smother. And he wasn't fantastic in the back of the net. And overall, they really, and that's kind of my point, is that they didn't have that killer instinct. And that is really what I mean by lazy by the Toronto Maple Leafs. Is even the commentators said that Nylander looked like he was the only one with any oomph in his step that night, right? He got the puck, and sometimes he looked like he was like, I'm going for it, and then he gets shut down because he's a one-man. He's not McDavid, he's not McKinnon, he's not going to be able to just walk through everybody, right? He's very good, but he's just not that good. And he was trying so hard, but everyone else in Marner and Matthews and Tavares and even Morgan Riley, they were so prominent in the first round, they seemed invisible tonight. Like Marner, in the first round, I think he was the most consistent guy at putting pressure on the other team. But he kind of looked like, I didn't even know they said his name last night. And Austin Matthews, other than his post shot, he did nothing last night. So really, the big guys, they need to step up, and I really only saw Ryan O'Reilly and Michael Bunting out there, and Samsonov looking good, right? So they just didn't have that killer instinct that Florida does. Florida's got Verhage, who's on a run for wanting to make the most good goals. Important goals. Brandon Montour just being an absolute machine in the playoffs at scoring. Matthew Tkachuk just being Matthew Tkachuk. We know what he brings. But guys like Sam Bennett and Nick Cousins stepping up and being like, I'm going to be the man who puts the puck in the back of the net. And that's the biggest issue that Toronto has, is that it didn't feel like none of the guys wanted to be like, I'm going to be the guy who's going to tie this game. I'm going to give us the one goal so we're one behind so we have that take the tying game, right? They never felt like that. They never felt like, I'm going to be the man. They just never felt that moment. And really, I think that's just the issue, is like, maybe it's because they already felt like they won the playoffs because they won round one. I mean, I know that sounds really stupid, but that's just the way it felt. It felt like they were like, we already had our moment, we're tired, we're done. And that's just really how it felt, is the killer instinct wasn't there. They looked lazy, and they just couldn't get past Bobrovsky, and that's really all I gotta say. Toronto, I mean, this is what I said. This is exactly what I said would happen in my my preview of the series, is Toronto looks a little lazy. They give up a few mistakes, and sometimes they are out of position. And defensively, they looked a little woozy. And Florida is the capitalizing machine. Between them and Dallas, I would say those are the two teams that capitalize on their opportunities the best. They might not get the most, but they're definite. Well, actually, they might get the most. Florida might get the most, but they capitalize when they get a chance. If you give them a free shot like the Montour shot, those are the ones that Florida's always going to take. And Toronto, they just didn't have that. They didn't have a guy go, I'm shooting this in the back of the net. They just never had that step-up moment, that hero moment. That's what they're missing. So maybe this will be like round one, where they lose game one, and second game they bounce back and with a real dominant win. I don't know. I don't really think so. That tonight didn't feel like. I feel like in round one, that game one loss was a soul, like, I gotta redeem myself, and they really did in game two. This doesn't feel like that, though. This felt like well, we lost, so let's look forward to next game. And that's how I think it's gonna happen, is next game they're gonna show up. It's gonna be relatively the same. Maybe Florida's got a little bit more fire under them, and maybe he's a little bit more in control. But overall, this was, I feel like, Toronto's game to lose, and they did lose. So that's all I gotta say. If you've gotten to this point, you've liked it, please pick up your free subscription down below. I'm begging you, please. And until next time, too sweet, have an amazing day, and ta-ta for now.